Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Jake, and today we have a showdown between two great manufacturers, Axial and Vanquish. So stay tuned. So, we have two trucks, the SCX10 Pro and the VRD Builders Kit. We're going to do a this versus that and compare both trucks with footage and give you all the details about both. First things first, we are very partial to Vanquish, so we're not going to sway our judgment one way or the other based upon that. We just happen to like Vanquish more for a variety of reasons that we're not going to get into on this video. Just know that we are doing this comparison with an open mind. We don't really care if it's Vanquish, we don't care if it's Axial. We're going to give honest feedback on both trucks and provide you with the best information to decide which truck you should purchase. Let's dive into some of the specifics between each truck before we go any further. Now, the first truck I'm going to talk about is the Axial because A comes before V. This truck is essentially a bone stock truck. There are a couple of things that I'm going to note about it. It has the same exact wheelbase as the Vanquish. This truck comes as a kit. It does not come with any electronics. It does not come with a body, nor does it come with wheels and tires. So you have to supply all of that on your own. What we have chosen to do with this truck is we have placed a Fusion SE motor in it. We've placed a NSD RC 500B servo in it, and we're using our FlySky Noble radio setup to control it. One of the key features is that the shock placement on this is set. So you can't actually move the shocks up or down. You can only move the shock forward and back. This really limits you on your shock selection and your shock placement. What you're doing moving from the front to the rear or vice versa is you're changing the way that the shock works. You're making the spring lighter or stiffer, and you're making the shock oil lighter or stiffer. There's not a lot of room for adjustments on these towers. So that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Realistically, they left you no decision of your own. They put the shocks where they wanted them, and that's where they are. Now, a lot of people buy different chassis for both trucks, so that's not a huge issue. Next thing I want to talk about is the transmission. It does have an interesting motor placement. The motor sits up quite a bit higher than I'd like. It does have a motor plate that feeds a transfer case, and inside of the transfer case there is a selectable overdrive, so you can go from, I believe, 0 to 5% to, I think it's 40 to 45% overdrive. Right now the truck is locked into overdrive because that's what I prefer. This kit comes with two options, which is really nice. In the box you can either make it a chassis mounted servo or you can make it an axle mounted servo. And it's not only axle mounted, it's behind the axle mounted, as you can see here. So it doesn't sit on top, it sits behind the axle, which is really nice. And like I said, the kit comes with both of those options in the box. The skid does have a very slight angle. It doesn't have a huge angle. It does have high clearance links in the back and straight links in the front, which again is pretty typical. You don't want high clearance links in the front most of the time because you want the front to feed the skid, and then once that happens, your front typically has traction and it'll drag your back over because your back should be a lot lighter. There are a couple things on this truck that weren't there from the factory. First of all, the motor plate is one of them. I changed it out from plastic to aluminum. And then the second thing is the servo mount. I changed that from plastic to aluminum. The weight is actually the same. So it's not an upgrade in terms of weight or additional weight added to the truck. It's literally just adding the aluminum there to eliminate the plastic pieces from breaking. I don't count that against the comparison because, again, the weight is the same. That is pretty much it for the Axial SCX10 Pro. Let's move into the Vanquish VRD Builders Kit. The Vanquish VRD Builders Kit is essentially a stance with straight axles, typical Vanquish. We have the VFD transmission, which has been out for some time now. It's in the Ford Ice, the stance, the VRD Carbon, the H10 optic, so it's nothing new there. Really, the only new thing here for this truck is, again, the stamped frame, the stamped aluminum frame, which does actually provide a lot of shock mounting options. As you can see, we've taken advantage of the different options in the front and the rear. The other major difference is the servo on axle mount. So you can see we have servo on top of axle, not behind the axle, it's on top, for the VRD Builders Kit. Some people might say that it's not a fair comparison between the two because one is a servo behind the axle, one is servo on the axle. That's not really the same in terms of center of gravity and other stuff. It is what it is. Moving down as we did on the Axial, we have the VFD trans, which is typical. I think it has 6.5% overdrive. All of the gears throughout this entire truck are centered. And that's one of the things I forgot to mention about the Axial is all of the gears in the Axial are actually machined. Feel free to fact check me on that in the comments. All of the gears, including the diffs on the Vanquish, are centered gears, meaning that they're essentially made of powdered metal. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a good thing either. The machine gears are way stronger and they actually cost a lot more. This is an entry-level kit, is not meant to be top of the line. That's what the VRD Carbon Kit is for. This is an entry-level kit for people just getting into RC crawling. It does have 90mm shocks to accommodate the straight axles. It has high clearance links in the rear, no high clearance links in the front. However, it does come with the thick links. I believe these are 6mm links instead of the 3mm links that come on the stance, which is a huge bonus. For electronics, we're using the FlySky Noble, much like on the Pro. We're using a Fusion SE, again, like on the Pro. And lastly, just like on the Pro, we're using a NSDRC 500B. The wheelbase on both trucks is identical. So for the purpose of this versus that video, we're running the same wheels and tires on both. You'll have these steel metal wheels on the front of both trucks, as you can see. And then it has the plastic wheels on the back of both trucks. They are running high racks. The tires were brand new when I put them on. These wheels and tires, they've been running this versus that, and that's it. I don't run them on anything else. I simply just run them for comparison videos to be fair to both manufacturers in that video. The cost for the SCX10 Pro is $429.99. The Vanquish VRD Builders Kit costs $289.99. That's a pretty big difference. That's over $100. Aside from the kit costs themselves, both trucks cost exactly the same to build. If it's $800 for the SCX, it's going to be $600 and almost $700 for the VRD. The reason for that is because, again, we're using the exact same parts outside of the kit in both trucks for this example. Now there is one exception to that, and that is in the Vanquish. Before this video, we blew out the rear diff in the video where we built and ran this truck for the first time. On its second outing, we blew out the rear diff because it was centered. We actually replaced that with a Vanquish underdrive diff, which gives us 10%, really 16.5% underdrive or overdrive, however you want to look at it, from the rear being moved to 8 and 32 teeth, and it's a machined diff. The issue with this, and this is where we circle back to pricing, is that if we were to put machined gears throughout this truck, it would cost you around $240. We don't really need machined gears for the transmission. We would like machined gears for the transfer case. Those are $89.99. And then to buy the Vanquish spools and gears for the truck, you're looking at a $480 truck. Realistically, to make this truck's gears match this truck, the price tag is going to be higher on the Vanquish than it is on the Axial. So what you get right out of the box with this truck for $429.99, you actually have to spend another significant sum of money to total $480 to put in this truck. Pricing, I would say, goes to the Axial. Now, aside from pricing, you really don't need to put the machined gears in there right out of the box anywhere but the rear and the front diffs. If it were me and I were building it on a budget, I would put some Amazon special $15 diffs in the front and the back, totaling the kit to be just over $300. Those will do 10 times better than the stock centered gears. They'll save you money, and we can have fun because it's probably not going to break it. If you leave the centered gears in and you're using a brushless motor especially, you're going to go through the centered gears really quickly. Moving into really where the two trucks are different, and that is axles. So we're going to talk about why the Vanquish axles are better. The straight axles that come on the VRD Builders Kit are F10 axles. They have extreme turning angle, and if you look at the bottom, they're like one-piece axles. These are fantastic. There is very little to no impedances on this axle. You don't have screws hanging anywhere. You don't have any type of rough or hard edges anywhere. They just float right over the rocks for as good as axles can float over rocks. There has been a lot of thought put into these axles, and they are actually licensed Curry axles. So I assume that they're based off of the real thing. That to me is the #1 selling point on the VRD kit, is the axles themselves. Moving into the SCX axles, you can see what I'm talking about here. You see that you have the knuckle, we're going to call them the knuckle holders, where they screw on to the axle. They're big and bulky. They sit down, and there are screws in there. I mean, you can see the screw head right here. You actually have 2 metal tubes that go into a plastic pumpkin, which, first of all, there are straight edges on this pumpkin. Second of all, the metal tubes are only held into the pumpkin with 4 grub screws, 2 on each side. If you tighten those grub screws too far, you're actually going to bind your axle shafts, and you're going to have to back that out. The other thing that I really don't understand about a lot of these RC manufacturers is they put cap screws on their axles. Why? Use buttons. At least with button screws, there's much less area or material there to hang up on rocks and make it slide over rock much easier. Outside of my 2 personal issues with these axles, they're really not that bad. They'll get the job done. They're just not going to be as graceful as the Vanquish F10s. And really, there's actually one more major difference, and that's motor placement. So if you look at the Axial SCX10 Pro, your motor is sticking way up. Right? It's forward, it's really forward, and it's really nice, but it actually sticks up pretty far. And that's why you can't actually have a behind the axle servo mount for the F10, because the motor placement on the Vanquish is really low and it's really forward. The motor placement is actually better in the Vanquish. So far, where are we at? Well, again, my personal opinion, the price is better on the Axial. However, the axles are better on the Vanquish. The motor placement's better on the Vanquish. The shock placement's better on the Vanquish. And actually, I think the shocks are better on the Vanquish too. But again, that's personal preference. I'm not going to really give a ding to Axial for that. Both shocks leak. They both get the job done. The next thing people are probably asking is, how much does each truck weigh? That is a very good question. We'll start with the VRD Builders Kit. The VRD Builders Kit without the body and without a battery weighs 4.436 pounds, the way that it sits now. The Axial SCX10 Pro weighs 4.773 pounds. Again, no battery, no body. So the Vanquish is actually lighter than the SCX10 Pro. Some other interesting differences between the 2 trucks are the sliders. The sliders are actually longer on the SCX than they are on the Vanquish. I'm not sure if I like that more or less. I'll let you decide. I want to say the skid angle is the same on both trucks. Again, you can fact check me in the comments below. Key differences for this versus that is going to be the servo placement. So the servo placement on top of the axle versus behind the axle. The Axial should have an advantage here. And the reason that I say kind of is because the motor placement on the Axial is actually at a disadvantage versus the Vanquish. So all in all, the motor placement and the servo placement kind of cancel each other out. So it should be a very good competition. With that being said, we're going to jump into the footage where we run a couple of gates. We're on location, as you can see. We're at a Spillway. The first truck we're going to run here is the SCX10 Pro. And we're going to try and hit this first gate. Gate might be a touch easy. I lied. We're going to have to take a reverse here. Not really the truck's fault. More of a driver disadvantage. I haven't run this gate yet. And man, this incline is pretty steep. The incline is pretty steep. I'm going to try and get the best shot that I can. So we might have to move this out a touch for both trucks to clear it. So we'll do that. But man, that is beautiful. SCX10 Pro did it. Let's see if the old VRD stance can execute. Front axle getting through there is pretty easy. I didn't quite take it as wide as the VRD, so we're going to redo that if I don't fall. I did move the gate, so move it in some. Move the gate back some. We're gonna start real wide like we did with the 10 Pro. And it's just take a reverse. We're going to go a little wider. There we go. Well, we did touch it. Just for sanity, let's try it again with the 10 Pro. Whew. Slid right through there. And one more time with VRD. Rip. Don't want to get the tires yucky. We already did. Might have had a slight mishap there. The gate did move a little bit, so we're going to move it back in just a touch and see what this truck can do with wet tires. Just not able to get it. I don't know what the difference is here. Maybe suspension placement, maybe weight, maybe tires. The tires are actually the same on both trucks. Ooh. Yeah, it's interesting. No, just can't squeeze it through there. So the SCX10 Pro wins that gate. Let's move on to gate 2. So gate 2 is a side hill into a breakover. If you haven't noticed, the side hill is pretty steep. The steering angle on these axles are super impressive. We didn't hit the gate. We almost did. And we cleared it. Now let's try it with the 10 Pro. So it just occurred to me that for the first gate, the reason, or very likely the reason, that the SCX10 Pro has the advantage, and it cleared gate 2 just fine. So the reason that the SCX10 has the advantage over the VRD Builders Kit is it has a lot more overdrive. Those tires on that rock ledge over there, or cement ledge, have a lot more drive in the front than the rear on the 10 Pro. And then on the VRD Carbon, wrong sticker. On the VRD Builders Kit, the overdrive is way lower. It's like 16%. It's only 6.5% from the factory, but I do have the underdrive gear in the rear because I blew out the stock centered one, and the underdrive gear is all I had. So let's move on to gate number 3. Gate number 3 is going to be an awesome side hill. We will see if the overdrive truck can win in this department, or if the Vanquish truck wins. We will see. You can already see the rear is kind of sliding down. Oh, no. Try it again. So the rear is sliding down because... Nope. The rear is sliding down because it's actually moving slower than the front, causing it to break traction. And when it breaks traction like that, the whole truck wants to break traction. You can see we are living on the edge here. That run was pretty wild because the driver's rear was lifted the whole time, and as you can see, it's kind of lifted on the VRD too. The SCX10 Pro took 2 times to hit that, and the VRD Builders Kit did it in the first try. I'll give that one to the VRD Builders Kit. So far, gate 1, I think, goes to the SCX10 Pro because it has more overdrive and it was able to pull itself onto that ledge much easier than the less overdrive VRD Builders Kit. And then gate 2, I think, is a tie. Both of them did that relatively easy. And then gate 3, I think, goes to the VRD Builders Kit because the SCX10 Pro took 2 times to do it. Now, could I do it in the 10 Pro the first try if I did it again? Potentially, but I think the Builders Kit wins that side hilling anyway. It's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. So this next gate doesn't look very tough, but it is on an incline, trying to go up an incline. On an incline. There's a lot of inclines here. We are well far away from the driver's gate, and man, that looked good. I'm gonna try and run the same exact lines for both trucks, so don't, like that right there is probably line selection. Don't shoot the messenger. See. So they're pretty evenly matched. Well, yeah, pretty evenly matched there. The back drug a little bit because of the overdrive, but all in all, pretty even. This next gate is going to be testing the breakover angle of the trucks. This is a pretty aggressive gate. I don't know if either truck's going to be able to do it, but we're going to give it a shot. Just kind of moving the camera to where you can see both gates so we know one truck isn't hitting the gate. And the 10 Pro made it look easy. Okay, let's see what the VRD truck does. Move over here. Almost hit that gate, had to pull a reverse there. We just don't have the front. We did hit the gate. Let's try that again, see if we can do it without hitting a gate. I don't think that we're going to succeed, but you never know. Tire found the hole. Twice. Found the hole twice. Okay, there we go. Attempt number 2. Nope, had to do a reverse. There we go. Little bumpage action. And we cleared both gates without hitting them. This next gate's a pretty vertical climb. This is really a tire test, so I don't know if either truck's gonna do it. Of course, this truck found a hole immediately upon arriving here. wind, don't really count it against it because the wind knocked it over there. Warm up the tires. There we go. This is really testing the suspension and stock geometry of the truck, and we were able to get that without hitting the gate, maybe. Whew, that wind is something fierce. Whew, just barely skirted by that. Let's give it a shot with the SCX10 Pro. Not entirely sure why I did that. Let's try it again. It's Overdrive. Overdrive is killing it. So the Overdrive is keeping that driver rear from falling in the hole, which is essentially preventing the truck from doing what it needs to do. So we'll try a little more, or I guess we could try again. It doesn't really matter. There we go. There we go. Oh, and we tagged it. We could have probably gotten through there without tagging it. And we're back for the conclusion. After watching that footage that you just saw, there is one pretty clear winner. I feel like the Axial was able to do more gates with more ease than the Vanquish. Probably primarily due to Overdrive, but this is a stock truck versus stock truck comparison. I was pleasantly surprised with how well the Axial did. I thought it was actually going to get beat pretty bad by the Vanquish, and I was sorely mistaken. I think the Axial performed really well. I think both trucks performed really well, especially for being box stock trucks that are essentially just thrown together and ran through some gates. No tuning or adjustments were done on either truck. If you want to count the motor plate and the servo bracket, the Axial has an advantage. However, they weigh the same as stock, so in my mind, there's no advantage there. The other advantage is the Vanquish has the underdrive gear set in the rear, giving it a 16.5% overdrive or underdrive, however you want to look at it, than from the factory, because we broke the centered gear that was 8 1/32. The match was pretty even. Am I the best driver in the world? Absolutely not. Did I try and replicate the lines as best as possible? I sure did. One thing that you probably should know is that I went out and I set up some gates, and I didn't practice either gate. I just ran some trucks through it. I didn't try and make one truck look better than the other. There's not any more footage where I actually recorded either of the trucks. I wanted this to be as unbiased as possible. So with that being said, as I stated, I think the Axial won the competition fair and square, and the Vanquish was right behind it. The next question you're going to have is, what about the upgrade paths? Well, the upgrade paths are pretty similar. There's plenty of upgrades you can do to either truck. I mean, you can make either truck basically have zero stock components except for the axles and maybe the links. And they're going to run completely differently. That's one thing you need to keep in mind, especially people that are just getting into the RC crawling world, is that when you make crazy changes, you only want to make one at a time. If you go and take a box stock kit like either one of these and you start making wild changes before you've had a chance to run it, you could actually be making that truck perform worse than it did from the box. Both of these trucks have had significant amount of research and development put into them. The SCX10 is actually older than the Vanquish in terms of its release date, and I think it shows. I think that the Axial is ready for a refresher and some updates. However, it still clearly works. I'm not going to push either one on you. Both are very capable trucks, and I hope you guys learned something from this, because we always have a fun time, regardless. Whether it's Axial, whether it's Vanquish, we always try to enjoy ourselves because that's what it's about. It's about having fun in the hobby and enjoying what you have. Which truck would I buy? Well, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to let you decide which truck you want to buy. With that being said, we appreciate you making it this far. Feel free to give us a like, and shout out to the TABO club members. Huge thanks for all your support, and as always, we hope you have a great day.